Hi, I'm Lisa K. Donner, along with Andrew Moran, Sarah Cowgill, Jeff Charles, and James Fight. And this is the Conservative Five, Liberty Nation's online TV news program. The writing seemed to be on the wall, a big November red wave. Democrats suffering the consequences of the Biden bunch were so far down in the polls, well, it seemed it was all over but the shouting. Since last November, Democratic candidates have been losing the popularity race, but now some polls are telling us they are closing the gap. Hello, panel. So good to see you. And thank you, Sarah, for taking over while I was on vacay.
I am so glad you're back.
Well, it's good to be here with
they're unruly. They're unruly at best.
Friendly faces. I'm going to put them through their paces today. Okay, Jeff, you penned a piece for Liberty Nation this week on the Democratic comeback. Maybe, possibly, give us the scoop.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, there are indications that that's what's happening, but the polling is kind of all over the place. Last week, a Real Clear Politics average had Democrats and Republicans tied. 538 had Democrats leading by 1 percentage point. But then you have Rasmussen and Trafalgar that still shows that there's still a 5 to 7 point gap between Republicans and Democrats, with Republicans in the lead. But this is still a decrease from what it was even before. And there could be a lot of factors figuring into this equation. You got the Supreme Court's decision on Roe v. Wade overturning it. You've got the raid on Mar-a-Lago, and gas prices are going down. But I mean, there's still a chance for Republicans to stretch ahead. I still think that they're probably going to take the House, but the Senate is in question.
Jim, you're our hound over there for the House and the Senate. How do you see this shaping up?
Well, I don't. We've had a lot's happened in the last few weeks. We've got that raid on Mar-a-Lago, which I think the Democrats think is going to help them, but I really don't think it is. I think if anything, it's going to fire up Republicans. But then you've got this, here. Just yesterday, you got the announcement about the student loan forgiveness, that campaign promise Biden made, year and a half ago or more. And then now that we're a couple of months out from midterm and needs to drum up votes, here it is.
I have to say, I think this is going to be challenged. I don't know that the executive branch has the power of the purse like this that can forgive debt. Is anybody else sort of wondering about this?
When Nancy Pelosi said that a couple of months ago, she said that President Joe Biden doesn't have the power to forgive student loan debt. So that supports your supposition, Lisa.
How many times do you find yourself in agreement with Nancy Pelosi?
That's been the biggest thing this week, I think, is that people are fired up about forgiving student debt. There's not a lot of happy people out there over this one. So I think that's going to factor into some polls maybe next week. But then again, think about it. It's August. We're not anywhere near Election Day. 1,000,001 things can happen between now and then, and usually does. So, just waiting for the next shoe to fall.
Plus, Callie Ballard, she wrote an excellent article recently talking about how the media keeps parroting the same thing. Biden wins, Biden wins. They're referring to the Inflation Reduction Act, talking about falling gas prices, completely forgetting about everything that's still going on in the background. You have the U.S. economy in a recession. You still have inflation elevated, debt is surging, consumer demand is on the decline. So overall, I mean, if the media can keep spouting that nonsense, then perhaps enough people believe it and head over to the voting booth.
Well, never underestimate the power in the narrative.
All right, let me ask you guys this, because I think this is interesting. The legacy newspapers are all like front page stuff with abortion. And I think what's happening is some of these states' laws are kicking in, and some of them are pretty onerous. There was one today that kicked in. I don't know what the penalty was for the obstetrician that performed an abortion, but it was really pretty severe. I don't know if it was life in prison or something like that. Really scary stuff. Do you think the abortion issue is starting to get traction and maybe a factor in November? Anybody can take this.
Yeah, well, when I'm looking at polling, I mean, there are certain polls that indicate that abortion is an important issue because of the Supreme Court decision, but it still isn't outweighing inflation and gas prices and everything else that's going on. I think what's happening, Lisa, is that the focus was on inflation, jobs, and the economy, but then the abortion issue came up and then the raid came up, and that's sucking all the attention away from those economic issues. But I still think there could be a rebound because even if these issues are on the news cycle, people still know what they're paying when they're going to the grocery store today, and they know it's a lot more than it was before.
But let's face it, there's got to be some kind of disconnect between the Democrats and the Republicans. Well, of course, there's lots of disconnect. But I mean, a disconnect in this student loan thing, because they're doing it, I think, because they think it's going to get them votes. There's some 40 million people. But, the Republicans are saying, on the other hand, wait a minute, there's 300,000 people 300 million people that don't have, are going to pay for the 40 million. I hope that made sense. But, what I'm trying to say is there is a divide on how this is going to land politically. What do you guys think?
Well, most people that have no student loan debt, don't want this. I don't care if you're a Democrat, Republican, Green Party, or an independent. Nobody wants to pay for somebody else's poor decisions or for their inability to pay back a loan. No, nobody wants to pick up somebody else's debt. They want to take care of their family. They don't want to take care of Joe Blow in Connecticut.
Yeah,
but a big part of their issue here is if here's the thing: $10,000, $20,000, either way, you're making the folks that aren't going to benefit from this in the short term mad. But by limiting this to $10,000 for people that didn't get Pell Grants and $20,000 for people that did get, you've got the vast majority of the side that's clamoring for this mad because you didn't do enough.
Yeah, but let's face it.
Situation.
But let's face it. If you're one of those people that's getting a $10,000 or $20,000 forgiveness, that's a lot of money. Aren't you going to go out and vote for the Dems?
Absolutely not. But I am going to pay my car off.
and pour it into your Robinhood account, and stonks go up. But if I had one thing about student loan forgiveness, is that the Republican Party, they're doing this all wrong. Instead of insulting, millions of Americans who would get the $10,000 and saying, oh, you just pay your own way, they're not talking about the root cause of how higher education is in shambles. They're not talking about how, the government's in a predatory loan business and how the government caused a whole skyrocketing tuition. So their whole PR campaign is just messing it up instead of just talking to people why this is a bad idea, because it doesn't cause the fundamental issues with post-secondary
That's
education.
always their biggest weakness, that they don't provide an alternative. I mean, Democrats are saying, oh, well, let's not fix the system. Let's just, forgive some debt. While Republicans are saying, oh, that's not fair. That's not fair. But okay, so what are the Republicans' suggestions for fixing the broken system? You're right, Andrew. But the problem is that Republican messaging doesn't really align with that.
I think now my Twitter account, my main pin is going to be, Andrew, you're correct. Quote by Jeff Charles. Check mark, Jeff Charles. I say.
Yeah. He's going to be checking for that. Jeff's never on Twitter. Duh.
No, never.
All right. Well, any final thoughts on this before we go into our next segment, which everybody's going to want to tune into because it's really funny? No comments. Hearing none.
Big pregnant pause.
Hearing none. I move to the close while the GOP is looking to reassert its mojo as November approaches. Thanks for the insight, panel. And that's it for our C5 panel today. Check out our other C5 shows and segments on your favorite video platform: YouTube, Vimeo, Rumble. We're on them all. As well, Liberty Nation has its own Roku channel where you can see all of our productions. Thanks for tuning in, and remember, surf on over to libertynation.com. Join us in the member zone for $17.76 a year. Thanks to our fantastic editor and post coordinator, Frank Diorio, and our executive producer, Sarah Calgill. I'm Lisa K. Donner, editor-in-chief. Thanks for joining us today. This has been a production of libertynation.com, where truth is making a comeback.